I don't really want to go into a detailed rundown of what happens in this book because this review is really for people who have read it. So there will be spoilers in this video for sure. So if you're not interested in having anything spoiled, I would close this video right now and not watch it because I'm going to be talking about mainly the end of the book. So you've been warned. So just as a quick refresher, the book is narrated by Dr. Faraday. And when he was young, his mother was a maid in this big mansion called Hundreds Hall. While he was young, he always wanted to live there. Cut to modern day, he is now a doctor. It's the 1940s, it's after World War II, and he constantly visits Hundreds Hall to tend to Roderick. And he becomes kind of involved in their family, becomes a family friend, and eventually strikes up like a quasi-romance with the daughter, Caroline. One of the daughters of this heir's family, Susan, dies when she's, I think, 8 years old. And once Faraday comes into the picture, the house and the people living in there are being haunted by, ostensibly, the ghost of this little stranger who is Susan. Or at least that's what people seem to think, or many people seem to think. It's very easy to read this story as more of a casual gothic horror novel, poltergeist novel, ghost story. Susan is this little stranger that's on the front cover, and she is haunting the family as long as they live in this house. Or until they go crazy and start dying off one by one, which is what starts to happen in this story. And I think the confusion that some people seem to have with this story stems from the fact that it's told by Dr. Faraday. He is this secondary character who's watching the action and telling the story, but it's really about the family who lives there. He's close enough to see everything that happens and have these intimate relationships with these people, but he's far enough away that he's not the one being attacked because he's not a part of this family that seems haunted. This version of the story is fairly straightforward. It's simple, it's creepy, it's a ghost story. It's good, but is that what's actually happening? I don't think so. I thought that Sarah Waters was doing so much more with this story, and she uses the doctor's point of view to obscure what I think is really going on here. The little stranger is not Susan. It's not the child who died when she was 8 years old. The little stranger is Dr. Faraday. This is not a simple ghost story. This is a story of male ego and desire and fear and impotency and class impotency and unresolved anger. Faraday has spent his entire life yearning, longing to be a part of this house, to be a part of this household. But there was this class struggle for him where he was this poor kid who could only kind of watch the people who lived in this house and seemingly didn't appreciate it. And he always wanted to have what they have, to the point where when he was young, he was in the house, he rips this kind of ornamental acorn from the house. He takes off literally a chunk of it, and he steals it so he can at least have that for himself. And I think this moment is really illustrative of who he is and who he becomes in the story, because it shows that he is willing to harm something or take something away from something that he loves if he cannot have it. He is not able to put his wants and desires and needs to the side and let other people have those things. But he grows up and he's telling this story, and Dr. Faraday seems like a really sweet, nice, generous person, and he's the voice we have in this story, and we don't suspect him because people are dying and are being haunted off screen from him, if you can use that phrase. Things are happening when he is not in the house. People are dying when he is not in the house. So it's very easy, I think, for readers to not connect him to what's going on or not blame him for what's going on, especially when there is this very typical little stranger that is Susan, who seems to be the obvious culprit for who is haunting this house. But what I think is going on is that Faraday's inner feelings, his rage, his unresolved issues, his repressed anger and jealousy and desire have led to, have birthed some kind of poltergeist in this house. I think Sarah Waters is trying to illustrate that these unresolved tensions and feelings can have larger consequences outside of you, even if they go unexpressed. Consider Faraday's relationship to each member of the Ayres family. Susan, who dies when she's a kid, Faraday is really, really jealous of her position and all that she has, all that he longs for. And on a day where he's really, really feeling that, she gets sick and she later dies. In the story proper, Roderick has decided that he wants to sell the house. All of a sudden, he starts getting haunted and he's sent away. Mrs. Ayres, the mother, won't accept Faraday as part of their family, so she starts getting haunted and she dies. And then finally, Caroline, who we've become attached to and Faraday has become attached to, refuses to marry Faraday, or at least on his timeline. She starts getting haunted and is killed. Now, Faraday's connection to these things is easily written off. Susan dies when he's only a kid and he didn't kill her, she got sick. The mother hangs herself. Caroline gets thrown off like a landing in the house when Faraday is sleeping far away. But I think what's happening is the result of some kind of projection out of Faraday, whether it's this lingering thing that's lived in the house ever since he was a kid, or it comes and goes based on his feelings kind of in real time for him. But I know that that's what's going on. And the reason I know is this scene at the end of the book, which is just so extraordinarily good and subtle. It just made me really, really enjoy the book so much more once I was finished it. What's really interesting about this is that Faraday doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know he's doing this. He doesn't know why this is happening. So he's trying to find out why Caroline died, how Caroline died, even though it was him. It's ultimately his fault. He just has no idea. And he's coming back to the house to see if he can figure it out. And he's walking around and he doesn't see the little stranger, this little girl that people think is haunting the house. There's this moment where he's standing in the house and he looks over into a mirror, and Waters very pointedly explains that all he saw there was not the little stranger, the little girl. He only saw his own reflection. And right there, I think, tells the story of the whole book. That one moment, not even that scene, that one moment changes the interpretation of the entire book. So I don't think this is just like a standard ghost story. I think that this is like almost a weirdly feminist ghost story. One that serves as kind of a takedown of male rage and male entitlement, of kind of a class rage. I read an interview with Sarah Waters after I finished this, and her idea for writing the book was that she was interested in this period after the war ended where class distinctions started to get blurry, or the lower or middle classes started to believe for the first time, no, I can actually want more, I can get more. So there's a tension that was going on at that time. So this is a really weird story then for her to write, if that was the impetus for that story. Why would she write a little kid ghost story if she's trying to write about class rage? And I would argue she did write about class rage. This story is about Faraday and his outright refusal to let this house go, this life go, that not only he wanted, but he feels like he deserved it. And what I really loved about this story, I think more than anything, is that not only is the, hero of the story, not even the hero, but the narrator, we'll call him the hero, not only is he the actual villain of the story, he doesn't even know that he is the villain of the story. So yeah, I thought it was just extraordinary. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars just this morning, and now that I've talked about it, it's got to be a 5. I really, really, really like this. It's just the perfect book for people who like literary fiction and who like horror or gothic stories. Like, I'm not even one of those people. Like, I don't read many ghost stories, gothic stories, haunting stories, at all. And I love this. I thought it was fantastic.